Hey everybody, and welcome to the live show. I'm glad you're with me here today, and you can get going on the chat box. I'm going to get to the questions in just a second. Want to talk about a few things before we get going. First of all, the numbers for the month of March for the Canadian market should all be coming in tomorrow, and I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think the Canadian market is starting to slow down a little bit. For passive observers, you might not know that the Canadian market has been roaring along at record levels over the last 4 or 5 years, each year adding more and more sales. In the end of 2017, for the very first time in the Canadian market, we passed 2 million vehicles, and just a blistering pace that couldn't stay that way forever. So we're starting to see things cool off in many different areas in Canada. Housing, we've had all kinds of changes to the housing markets in governments like Ontario and British Columbia, and I think it's going to start to affect sales, which is good for consumers, because as the market starts to slow down and car manufacturers are trying to get your attention, there might be some good deals out there. These are, I don't think we're going to see it slow down too much, maybe anywhere from 5 to 10%, which would still be a very, very big year, 2018. But people who have like very secure jobs, if you're a civil servant and you're going to have your job for the next several years, and that, these are good times to start buying a car. One other thing I wanted to talk about is, look at this chart. This is Tesla. And the numbers on Tesla, this was over $320 just a couple of weeks ago. So that's quite the chart. Down to $252 at the end of today. And it basically just shows, I should also say the stock market overall was down today in the United States, but there's a lot of question marks around Tesla and their production capacity. They say that they're up to 2,000 cars per week of the Model 3. We'll have to wait and see. They are going to have a conference call around the sales of their cars later in the week. But the market is speaking, and there isn't a lot of confidence about Tesla meeting their goals, being able to survive unless they go back to the market and ask for more and more and more money. And there was that horrific crash a week or so ago of the Model X where people were killed using autopilot. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Tesla over the next little while. Before I get to the questions, I also want to let you know that we have the SoundCloud. If you go to SoundCloud and you type in Motormouth Canada, I'm doing basically what amounts to a podcast version of this. So I'm taking the audio and then I'm putting it on SoundCloud. Now, I haven't done it in the last little while, so because I was on spring break away with the family, but yeah, I'm going to be updating those. All right, so let's get into the questions here. Oh, by the way, I didn't do this yesterday because it's the long weekend. Still, some people are off today on Easter Monday, but I figured Easter Sunday, people are with their families, and it wouldn't be the best time to do a question and answer. That's why I moved it to Monday, but going forward, it'll still be on Sundays. Mark Dion says, what's your favorite new feature of the past few years? Which feature is most useless in your opinion, like digital cockpit and stuff like that? It's interesting. I thought about this. There's certain things that I just couldn't live without in a modern car today, like heated seats. I love a heated steering wheel. I like a power tailgate. Those are all creature comforts. I like the keyless entry and push button start without having to take the key out of your pocket. Those are all things, once you've had them in a vehicle, you're going to kind of want them in the next vehicle. I think you're right with the digital cockpit and dashboard. These are nice things to have, but you really don't need them. And if you had one car into the next and it didn't have it, would you really miss it that much? And I don't think you would. A forward collision warning is one of those features I think that is really advantageous in a new vehicle. The beep, 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 it makes the audible noise, and then it puts the brakes on automatically if you don't brake in time. That's a great feature. One I despise and I turn off on every car is lane keep assist, because they're so aggressive. Driving is a compromise. You're always compromising in your lane, apexing a corner, all those sorts of things. Nobody drives perfectly in between the lines, and when you do, the cars fight you back and forth. So those are just a couple of things. I agree with you on the digital cockpit. Lane keep assist I don't like. Earn1 says, how's your new diesel? Likes and dislikes. So that's the new family hauler. That's the Cayenne diesel. For those that are not aware, the diesels have not been sold by the Volkswagen Group since 2016. So if you want a diesel, you have to go to BMW to get a brand new diesel, or Jaguar, Land Rover. General Motors has some new diesels in the Equinox, the Terrain, and the Chevy Cruze. And we're hoping to get the Mazda CX-5 anytime soon, but that still hasn't been officially announced. So yeah, the Cayenne is running like a champ. This one has been updated with the new software and any new mechanical bits. I think they made some changes to the exhaust system, but yeah, it's running like a champ. We got it, and the next week we went away for a vacation for spring break, so we've only really been driving it for about a week. So everybody in the family is absolutely loving it. And here's the thing. On the West Coast, okay, so pick the Alfa Romeo Stelvio, the Mercedes-Benz, or that Porsche. If you have a car that requires premium gas on the West Coast, in Vancouver right now, I filled up this Alfa Romeo to take it back today, $1.75 a liter for premium fuel. Diesel is $1.38 per liter, which is still much more expensive than much of the rest of the country. But that 30-something cent difference between premium fuel and diesel is amazing. And then it gets 25 to 30% greater fuel economy out of that same liter of fuel. So you're saving probably 50, 60 cents a liter by having a diesel. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with buying tastes on the West Coast if this continues. Justin Chung says hi. Daniel Lau or Lai says hi. Joss Jaegerman says hi from Hampstead in Montreal. Welcome to the show. P. Tilly says, would you buy a former rental car? Say one that's less than a year old. What happens with a lot of rental cars is they go to auction. They go to ADESA. These are fleet sales. And often these cars can be not a bad buy. Now, you have to go in with your eyes wide open, and you really need to get the vehicle inspected. Here's the thing. Yeah, they might have a few scrapes and dings, and typically the cars are refurbished before they're sold. But, you know, you're looking at a regular family vehicle that somebody's been renting. They're not really getting abused that much. Get the vehicle inspected. Go and take that vehicle from one place and have it inspected by an independent third-party mechanic, and you can get some good deals. Now, the other way you can do it is to get a demo from a dealer or a service loaner. If you're interested in a particular car, go to the dealership and say, hey, I'm looking at a Corolla. By the way, do you have any service loaners that maybe they've been using as a service loaner and they've got 5,000 or 6,000 kilometers on them? That's another way to get a vehicle for less. And often you can save on the shipping and the freight. But yeah, it can be a good way to save some money, but you have to get the vehicle inspected. Chris says, hi Zach, any word on the CX-5 diesel? Is it actually coming to Canada? I noticed Mazda Canada took it off their website as an upcoming model. Well, I am going in a couple of weeks to drive the new Mazda 6. They're having an event here in British Columbia up in the Vernon area. So we're flying into Kelowna, driving up there, and I'm going to have one-on-one with the executives at Mazda. And I tell you what, I'll do one of those question and answer videos that I like to do with the people from the car companies, and I'll ask them straight up. Last time I spoke to the executives at Mazda was at the LA Auto Show, and they said they're still waiting to get their certification, their calibration right. We'll have to wait and see. I'm not quite sure, but I'll find out more in 2 weeks' time. So if you're not in a rush, stay tuned for that. Orlando says, a few weeks ago, I had mentioned to you I had bought a 2015 Jetta TDI Highline. The car is only giving me 700 kilometers per tank. Is that normal? It's a 6-speed auto. Yeah, I mean, I would suggest 700 kilometers out of one tank of fuel is pretty good. Now, the car, I'm sure, has had the update to it. The fuel economy has been affected somewhat by this, but it's still not going to be anything like you would if you had a regular gasoline version of that car. And I'm almost betting you're doing most of your driving in the city or a combination of city and highway. If you had that car exclusively on a highway run, and you were driving at steady speeds of around 100 kilometers an hour, you'd probably get up to close to 1,000 kilometers. So write back and let me know what your driving style is and where you're driving it. But 700 kilometers out of a tank is pretty good. Josh says, thoughts on the e-Golf for a starting out realtor in Montreal. How does the government discount affect pricing in Quebec? Should it be a good deal? It's $8,000 in the province of Quebec, or $8,500. Don't quote me on that. I think it's 8. So the Golf is $36,000. We'll take 8 off. That brings you down to $28,000, which is pretty close to a regular, nicely equipped Golf. And there are some packages you can put onto that vehicle, but you really don't need to. The thing is, for a realtor, what do realtors do? You spend a lot of time in your car, okay? Is 200 kilometers of range going to be enough for you? So that's why you, might want to consider something that is a plug-in hybrid, meaning you're going to get 70, 80 kilometers of electric range to start your day, and then if you need to go farther, you're going to switch to a gasoline hybrid system, which is also very efficient. But if you don't, then you're just using electricity. So a vehicle like a Chevy Bolt, you can look at the new Clarity from Honda, or the Prius Prime, or some good examples of that. So what I want you to do, Josh, as a realtor, is monitor your daily driving over a 2-week period and see if you're doing under 200 kilometers a day. If you are, then an e-Golf would be an excellent vehicle for you. But if you're doing more than that, it's probably better to go to a plug-in hybrid. Justin says, would you recommend buying a diesel due to the recent rising gas prices? If so, is there a fast diesel on the market? Well, diesels, for the most part, get great torque. And torque is what you're using from stoplight to stoplight. I'm not sure what your definition of fast is. Quick is what I would call a lot of them. That torque is great, getting you off the line. And they're not as much power, like just straight horsepower for highway drives, but around town diesels can be very rewarding. For example, the Cayenne diesel in the city is actually quite a lot of fun to drive. Now, it's still in its break-in period. It's a brand new engine, so it's only got about 100 and 200 kilometers on it, so you can't go full throttle with it yet. But even then, just putting your foot into it a little bit, it can certainly take off. So what is your driving style? So that is a question back to you. So the question is, would I recommend a diesel due to rising gas prices? Yes, you get much better fuel economy. So diesel, depending on where you live in the country, can be less expensive or the same price. Sometimes during the year it's more expensive. Where I live here on the West Coast, because we've had a diesel now for 3.5 years in our family, it's never been more than regular fuel, but you get a 30% benefit out of each liter of fuel. And the thing is, a lot of cars that I would consider wouldn't use regular gas, they would use premium fuel, so you'd certainly save. Tom Chan says, I've looked at a Model 3 Vancouver Tesla store. The poor workmanship is an eye-opener. Panel gaps are unseen of in current cars. Shoddy workmanship in the cabin is unbelievable. Okay, well, Tom, I'm not going to disagree with you. The one that I saw at the LA Auto Show, I went over it. Now, they wouldn't let me sit inside it, and there was a security guard standing there who was a bit of a dick because I was going over the car and looking at the panel gaps and things like that. And I have heard anecdotally that the quality control isn't that good with these new products. There's a company in Detroit, and this is what they do for the auto industry. They take cars and they basically take them apart, part by part, and they analyze things like how much does each part cost, how is it assembled, and they sell that information to other car manufacturers. It's basically research they're doing. And when they took the Model 3 apart, they basically said it looks like the quality of a Kia from the early 1990s. Now, you got to remember, that's not modern Kia. We're talking a 25-year-old Kia when they weren't even in the Canadian market at that point. So they said they hadn't seen build quality as poor as the Model 3 until back in the early 1990s. I don't hold out. I'm on a real wait-see with Tesla. I think it's going to get ugly, and it's going to get ugly here in the next couple of months. Tesla is not going to be able to make a profit. First of all, they aren't selling any of the $35,000 cars that they promise. They're selling high-spec cars. Why are they doing that? They want to get more money per unit that they're putting out the door. And even with the possible, say they do, let's pick a number, they're saying 2,000 cars a week, so 8,000 cars a month, they're not going to be profitable. And what we've seen with Model S and Model X is the sales were going up, and now they flatlined it, if not they're starting to dip. So you have your existing cars aren't selling as well. You have the capacity to build your cars hasn't increased to the point where it can meet all the reservation holders. You're not able to sell the cars at the $35,000 range. Plus, Tesla's going to hit their their 200,000 units. And once they hit that, they've sold 200,000 electric cars. They lose their federal tax credit in the United States of $7,500. So, and you have a company that has spent billions and billions and billions of dollars and is going to need billions more. I'll show you the stock price again. So this is just today. The stock price has dropped down to $252. Now look up at the peak there before it started to fall was over $350. It's dropped $100 in just over a month. Okay, so that's about a third of its value. The market is saying that they don't believe that Tesla is going to be able to produce the cars that they say. And what's going to happen is Elon Musk is going to do some other stunt before the quarterly results come out. And last time it was shooting a Roadster into space. That didn't really sell any more cars. And the last time before that, it was showing their electric semi. They say they're going to make the semi by 2019. Well, we're already a third of the way through 2018, and they can't even make the existing cars. So I don't hold out much hope. So Tom, I agree with you. It's, but you can't say anything about Tesla because the fanboys beat up on you. If the fanboys know about this live chat, they'll all pile on. So you know, it might be good for my channel. I might get more viewers. Solo says, any idea if the VW Atlas will ever get the VR6 in front-wheel drive? I don't think so. I think what they're doing is they're keeping that price point and the differentiator there. You want the V6, you get all-wheel drive. And here's the thing. I spoke to 2 Volkswagen dealer principals at the Vancouver Auto Show. I was down there for press day walking around, and I spoke to 2 dealers, one from Vancouver Island, one of the Cowles here in Vancouver. I said, how many base model Atlases are they selling? And they kind of laughed. They said, none. So people want all-wheel drive. Now, I have heard that the base model, for those who have driven it, is actually not bad. It's basically got the GTI engine and front-wheel drive. Tariq says, what do you think of a used 2012 Audi A4 Avant? Well, the thing is, the A4 is, that particular model is quite scarce. And I would almost bet, I don't have it with me, but I would almost bet that the value of that car is pretty high, considering it's a 6-year-old car. Because scarcity demands price. If you want to buy something and there's very few to buy, you can demand a higher price. A perfect example, I had a BMW 5 Series station wagon years ago, and I went to sell it. And it was the only one of its kind in the country. There was one BMW 525 station wagon, and I had it. This guy came to my house and he took it for a drive, and he says, oh, this is more than I can spend. This is, you know, I can get a Passat wagon for less. And I said, get a Passat. He goes, well, can't you drop the price? I said, there is one BMW 5 Series for sale in the country. I have it. So whoever brings the check for this amount gets to drive it away. And somebody did. So I would almost bet you that car is hard to find and retains its value. So that's good for resale, not so much if you want to buy it. Now, I have no real issue with the car other than I like German cars under warranty, and I want you to do your homework. Make sure that you get a car proof report. That's basically finding out if it's been an accident. If you live in a jurisdiction where you can do an insurance check like British Columbia, get the ICBC check. Also, excuse me, get a third-party independent mechanic to look it over to see where it's at. Ryan says, are there any vehicles that will appreciate in value? Vehicles that appreciate in value are really, really, really hard to predict. And a lot of times if you're going to buy one, you really have to hold them for a long period of time. and you have to really not drive them, and you got to maintain them. So there is real no way to do it. I mean, we have seen, for example, I had two air-cooled 911s, Porsche Carreras, and the last one I had went way up in value, but that has sort of, you know, evened out a bit now. So who really knows? I would suggest, you know, there's some Japanese import cars from the 90s. Like I've already seen the prices go up. An Acura Integra, some cars like that might go up in value, but it's really hard to know. Any new car going up in value? I don't think so. The ones that you can make money on are the super high-end cars like Ferraris, because the allotment is so small that, you know, say there's only 6 cars that come into the country. Somebody buys it for $400,000 or $500,000. They can drive it often for a year and then sell it for what they paid for it. But that's a different league. Tian says, what are your thoughts on Volvo's turbocharging plus supercharging engines? I like the way they drive. I have no issue with the way they drive. I think they're fine. I am going to take a wait and see on the reliability of that. More complex. Now, Volkswagen has a similar engine available in the European market. We don't get it here, unfortunately, but I'm on a bit of a wait and see. Here's the thing. You go and you look at quality scores for some of the new Volvos, especially the XC90 that has now been in the market for a few years. There seems to be more complaints about the infotainment system than I'm seeing about the engine, but I'll take away. I like the way it drives, though. I have zero issue. The other thing, all of the ones that I've ever driven don't get anywhere close to the fuel economy. Now, why would you go with a turbo 4-cylinder engine? You want to get great fuel economy, but in my opinion, I haven't been able to get it. Mario says, do all auto shows have the people on the floor pestering attendees to enter contests? Drives me crazy at the Vancouver show this past week. I'm not sure about which contest. Are you talking about the Chevy Bolt contest that they had, or contests at each individual booth? I got to tell you, I'm a bit of a handicap to answering this question because I don't usually go during the regular public days. I go for what's called the media day, the press day, where the public isn't there. The displays are there, the executives and the PR people are there, but they don't have their regular setup. So I'm a bit at loss to give you a real answer on that. Put earbuds in and then go, no speak English, and you'd probably be fine. Matt says, hi Zach, do you know if the automatic transmission in the 2018 Golf 1.8T changed over the past year's vehicle? My new Comfort line doesn't include paddle shifts on my steering wheel versus the older year Golf. That's something you're going to have to go, if you go to Volkswagen.ca, you can download the brochure. I had the Golf recently, and I had the top high line. Actually, I did a review of it. You go to the channel, you can watch it. It did not have paddle shifters. So maybe they've taken the paddle shifters out. You have to get the GTI. You can get it in the Alltrack, and you can get it with the dual clutch cars, but in the regular automatic, no. Here's the thing is, that car has a 6-speed automatic transmission, where the new Golf R, for example, has the new 7-speed dual clutch, and I didn't like it, the 7-speed. I preferred the 6-speed that you get in the GTI. So the exact answer to your question, I don't know, but you're right. I didn't have paddle shifters in the Highline Golf that I had, but you can do it in the middle, and that's something you really have to balance if it's that important to you. You could also get a GTI, which would give you the paddle shifters. Blue Chinchilla Eating Dorito. That's quite a name. Thoughts on Mazda 6 wagon? Would you nag Mazda Canada to bring it over here if you could? I would love to see it here. I think it's more handsome than the C-Class wagon you reviewed recently. Well, I say the answer to that is probably a very quick no. They're not going to bring a wagon in. I loved the previous Mazda 6. They had the sedan, they had the wagon, and they had that sport it looked like a wagon, but it was just a big hatchback, similar to an A7 actually, and it integrated in. It looked like a trunk, but it opened like a vehicle like that, and I really liked those. And then they stopped selling them, and everybody is rushing towards utility vehicles. Wagons, actually, when I put this vehicle online, I actually put the line in there, save the wagons. This C-Class, by the way, isn't even sold in the United States. The fact that Mercedes-Benz Canada was able to get it into the Canadian marketplace speaks more to the strength of Mercedes-Benz in Canada and the weakness of station wagons in the US. But I would say, I will absolutely ask about the Mazda 6 wagon, but I bet you no is the answer. Kiko Zhu says, hey, Zach, bravo. My 1-year-old baby goes to bed every night listening to your Q&A recordings. Thank you from Toronto. That's kind of weird. I don't know. Is that good or bad? Want to buy an E90 M3. Do you think it will appreciate in value in the future? It might. It might. Absolutely it might. But the thing is, you need scarcity. And it's not a scarce enough car that it's going to appreciate in value in the long term. So you need scarcity, and you need the condition of the car to be very good. Okay, so what you get are these cars that have very low miles on them, and they've really not been driven, and there weren't that many of them around. So an E90 M3, it's not that rare a car, but it might be one of those that doesn't depreciate too badly. And a car of that age, often the depreciation curve has happened, and they kind of flatline. I have owned many BMWs. I had a 5 Series wagon I told you about. Now, I bought that car and it was maybe 5 years old, and I paid this is years ago, mind you, I'm doing 1990s dollars, but it was like $23,000 or $21,000. I sold it 5 years later for $18,000. So that's not much money for 5 years worth of driving. So even though it might not go up in value, it probably is it flatlined in its depreciation curve. So drive it, own it, enjoy it, and sell it on. And if you're only selling it for a few $1,000s of what you paid for it, that's a good buy. Anytime you can do that. I have done really well on certain cars. My first Porsche Cayenne that I bought, I got a great deal buying it new, and then I sold it, and I averaged out what it cost me over the 6 years of ownership was $330 a month. You can't get a Corolla or a Camry for $330 a month, and that's a Porsche. So sometimes you can't just look at what you pay to buy the car. You also can try and figure out what it's going to sell for in the future. And cars that depreciate less, or cars that have flatlined in the depreciation curve, you can own for several years. And it really, if you average it out for every month you own it, sometimes it can be really inexpensive to drive a very nice car. So good luck with that. Buzzaglow04 says, any info on the new Jeep Wrangler mild hybrid? Do you think it'll be able to achieve similar fuel consumption to a compact SUV? Okay, I just want to explain the mild hybrid system from FCA. Okay, it's called, what's it called? The torque. Try it off the top of my head. So basically, you have a 48-volt battery. It's not that big. It's about that big. It's not too big. And what their eco torque, I think they call it. And what it does is, you know that the engine starts and stops automatically, okay? What that 48-volt system is doing is, instead of there being an alternator, they replace it with an electric motor / generator. And that 48-volt, the high voltage, can spin that electric motor. It's connected by a belt to the crank, or to the to the rest of the engine, and it can give that initial little bit of boost to get the vehicle going the first couple of feet. But that's all it's doing. Okay, so it's like just for a fraction of a second, and then the gasoline engine, once it switches on, takes over. So yes, it's a mild hybrid system, but it's not through the entire driving range. I asked this question when I was at the Ram launch. I said, well, does it ever kick in? And they're like, no, it's only initial launch torque is what they call it. And that's what it's being used for. So I don't think it's going to get the kind of mileage you would get from a compact SUV. However, so they have the 3.6 liter Pentastar V6. They have the turbo 4-cylinder yet to drive it. I'm going to be driving a Wrangler in the next couple of months. And then they're going to have the Eco Diesel back, but it's going to be in the Jeep. Now that is the one that I would buy. My experience with the 3-liter eco diesel in the Ram pickup truck line has been about 10 or 11 liters per 100 kilometers in the city. So I would imagine with the Jeep, you would get great low-speed torque for crawling over rocks, if that's your thing, and you would get great fuel economy, but that's the one that I would buy. The mild hybrid is just that launch torque. Hopefully I explained it well. Travis Gagne says, what are your thoughts on the new Ford Ranger being released sometime next year? Do you think the starting cost will cost more equal to the GMC competition? Well, I think that Ford is absolutely going to price it with the competition. So the main competitors, of course, are Tacoma. You've got the General Motors trucks. You've got the Ridgeline. And did you see at the New York show that Volkswagen showed a pickup truck concept based on the Atlas platform? So it's going to be a, SUV at the front, pickup bed at the back, very similar to the Ridgeline, but made by Volkswagen. So that's going to be coming. So absolutely, Ford is going to have to bring it in line with those vehicles. Any thoughts on it? I had a look at it. It's a nice looking vehicle, and it has been sold now in many parts of the world. And what they've done is they've modified it for the North American market for things like suspension and different engines. So yeah, it's interesting that they showed it at the Detroit show, but it wouldn't be sold until a year later, so the early part of 2019. Absolutely, it'll be priced competitively with the others. Peak Time Racing, what are your thoughts on the new Mazda 6, which is coming out soon? You might have missed it. I mentioned it just a little while ago that, yes, I am going to the Mazda 6 launch that's happening here in British Columbia in 2 weeks. So I will definitely be getting more information, and watch for a review on that as I get going. Just stay tuned 2 more weeks and I'll tell you all about it. Long Dong, nice name. Long Dong says, can you suggest me some sport hatchback or coupe for under 30,000? I live in Toronto. Yeah, I think you're going to look at the usual suspects. I would look at a Honda Civic hatchback. I would look at the GTI. Those would be 2 great places to start. This one is kind of interesting. The Corolla Hatchback was shown in Vancouver and at the New York Auto Show at the same time. And it actually looks pretty damn good. And this is built on the new Toyota Global platform that's been used in the Prius and other new vehicles, the Camry. And Toyota, I think, has been nailed for having sort of substandard interiors over the last few vehicles. And I think that what they're going to do is they're going to update their head units, and their radios are going to have the new generation from Toyota. I think that's going to be really good. Independent rear suspension in that vehicle, so it's going to be interesting to watch. But those are a couple that you should definitely look at. Honda Civic and GTI. Excuse me. Minglism, I hope I said that right. Hey Zach, I have my eyes on a 14 BMW X1. I'm a little concerned about maintenance costs of a BMW. Do you have any aftermarket warranty recommendations? Well, here's the thing is, because this is a 2014, excuse me, it'll be just, if it hasn't ended yet, it'll be coming towards the end of its BMW initial bumper-to-bumper 4-year warranty. So what I would do is I would go back to, oh my goodness, I'm just going through all the questions here. There's so many of them. I lost my spot. Now I got to go back. I would go to BMW and ask them about theirs, okay? Because they can give you an extra 2 years or up to 160,000 kilometers. I don't know specific names of places, but yes, it's a good idea to get that done. But if you can get the certified pre-owned warranty from BMW, yeah, it's good. Now, here's the good thing about that generation of the X1. That was the original X1, which was built on the 3 Series station wagon. So what they did is they took a 3 Series station wagon, raised up the suspension, they outbacked it. That's what I call it. And it's a great product. And it has proven to be really quite reliable. So find that out from BMW. And even if you don't buy it from a BMW dealership, you should still be able to buy that warranty from them. Thomas says, do you think it's practical for a 49-year-old with 15 and 13-year-olds to want a new GTI? Feel the pressure to get an SUV. Thomas, who's wearing the pants in the family? If you want a GTI, dude, get a GTI until your wife says no. So that's the short answer to your question. Hey, you know, a 15 and a 13-year-old can fit in a GTI absolutely no problem. You have to do the negotiating at the kitchen table with the boss to see if that's going to fly. But yeah, there's no reason why you can't absolutely use a GTI for family duty. No question about it. What do you think about the new Toyota RAV4? I put on my Facebook page. So by the way, along the bottom here, you know, follow along in Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. Because my colleague Brian Chow, I was here in Vancouver. It was my son's birthday last week, and I couldn't go to the New York Auto Show for the Toyota RAV4 launch and all the other launches because I kind of need to be here for his birthday. I was invited to go with Toyota actually to look at the new RAV4. But on Facebook, on Motormouth Canada Facebook, I posted a link from Brian Chow, my colleague who did go, and his video is on my Facebook for Motormouth Canada. And looking at his video, I think it's going to be a home run. It is the best-selling compact utility in Canada now. Mike Gurr, the contributor to the channel, just put on a RAV4 video of the current car. He had mixed feelings about it, and yes, it's at the end of its life cycle, and that's why they're bringing out a new one. But you're going to have the 2.5-liter 4-cylinder from the Camry. You're going to have the 8-speed automatic from the Camry. You're going to have the independent rear suspension and the platform shared by the new Corolla and other products like the Prius and the new Camry. So it's going to drive better. It's going to be more rigid. It's going to be quieter. And it's got the new breed of radios, and it has Apple CarPlay, no Android Auto. But I think it's going to sell like crazy. That is not going to be available until just before Christmas, okay, of this year. So it's going to be a while yet. Long Dong writes back, what are the best manual sports cars for under $30,000, new or used? Well, Long Dong, what do you call a sports car? What is a sports car? I think for under $30,000, I would look at a Mazda, Miata, and MX-5, and the BRZ from Subaru, or the Toyota 86, whatever it's called now. It used to be the Scion. So those are cars that are under $30,000, front engine, rear drive, manual transmission, lots of fun. In order, I would say Mazda, Mazda Miata, without question. Mazda Miata is still one of the best cars on the road. I think it's going to be right around 30 grand. That might be a little bit over. Jorge says, any word on the Cadillac CT4 will have a manual? Love the ATS, but it would hold off for a better infotainment system. Well, the CT4, I think you're talking about the, not the CT4, the new utility vehicle they just came out with, the compact utility. I don't think it's going to have a manual. Utility vehicles just are they're just very few left, actually. So I think no, and especially for the Cadillac buyer, no. I think they're going to keep manual transmissions for their performance cars. The ATS is a performance-oriented sedan, ATS V and cars like that, but no, I don't think they'll have a manual. The ATS V is one of the best cars I drove last year. Man, I love that. So much fun. And there's huge discounts on them, so have a look. Art again, if you had $48,000 to spend on a sports car, what would you buy, either new or used? I would buy a sports car, just 2 seats. I would buy a used Boxster S. That's what I would buy, and try and get some warranty on it. But at $48,000, you can certainly buy a Boxster S. Orlando, back again, regarding Jetta TDI. Yes, the 700 kilometers is combined driving. I was comparing to my Passat TDI manual with the bigger engine, close to 900 combined. Now, the one thing you have to, if you're just tuning in now, Orlando was saying he has the 2015 TDI and he's getting 700 kilometers. The one thing you would want to check, and I don't know off the top of my head, the Passat might have had a bigger tank. So that's the other question. I don't know off the top of my head. But from 900 to 700 is quite a big drop. I would drive it a little longer and see what happens, but it might be because of the size of the gas tank. Dale writes in and says, Tesla is a joke. Well, they're not a joke. The one thing I will say about Tesla and Elon Musk is they have pushed the auto industry so far in many respects. The new Ram pickup truck that I drove just a couple of weeks ago and went to the launch with a huge 12-inch Uconnect screen in the center of the dash. Would anybody be doing that if Tesla hadn't done it? Probably not. All of these new electric cars like the Mission E that's coming from Porsche, or the full electric SUV from Jaguar, the I-Pace that's coming out within the next few months. And then you've got the e-tron, the Audi all-electric SUV by the end of this year. Would they have moved along that quickly had there not been Tesla, with people proving that they will buy a prestige electric car? So because of that, you have to give them credit. The way that Elon Musk goes around his business, I totally disagree with. What I don't understand about Elon Musk and is why, and I think it's because it's a Silicon Valley company. No other CEO of a publicly traded company could say the mistruths that Elon Musk gets away with and not be called up by the Security Commission about this. He says things that they're just absolutely false, and they're not going to be able, like, they are not going to have a semi-Tesla truck by 2019. They can't even meet the production targets of the Model 3. You know, the Model X was 3 years delayed. I mean, this is a company that uses hype to keep people excited about the brand, but the follow-through on products is not there, especially for their, quote, mass-produced people's car. So there you go. So on that level, I think he's a bit of a joke, but you have to give them credit for what they've been able to do. Rick Byers, thanks for tuning in. Rick, a regular in Gatineau. Zach, any chance you can do a review of the Volvo XC40? Well, here's the thing, Rick. I had a chance to do the XC40 this week, but it's supposed to pour rain on Wednesday. So I'm going to reschedule it. Hopefully by the end of the week, I'll get my hands on that. So yes, in the next couple of weeks, stay tuned. Zachary M says, hi, what are your thoughts on the new 2019 RAV4? I live in Northern Ontario and is wondering if you'd recommend something else. I think the new 2019 RAV4 is going to be a monster hit, as I mentioned, for Toyota. I think that they're going to sell lots of them. It's the best seller right now. So you combine the new one with the hybrid and maybe a plug-in hybrid coming. So you look at the Prius Prime, okay? Prius Prime is a plug-in extended range hybrid. I think we're going to see that in the RAV4 eventually. But for Northern Ontario, with the rough roads and the winter conditions, a 4Runner would be an excellent choice. However, really hard on gas. So that's something you have to decide. So the RAV4, yes, I would do more of a body-on-frame kind of truck if I lived in Northern Ontario, but that's just me. Mayus Wong says, we were a meteorologist on Global TV back in the 2000s. Yes, I was. I did the morning weather. I was the morning weather anchor at Global TV for almost 10 years. Some people are asking about that. And a lot of people said, you know, I was a radio disc jockey announcer here in Vancouver. I did weather. But you know what? I have been doing car reviews longer than I've done radio or TV, daily radio or daily TV. So I started reviewing cars back in 1992. One of the very first, what was the first car I got? I think it was a GTI. It was one of the first cars I got. No, it was a Nissan product. But I can clearly remember getting a Volkswagen Corrado VR6. That for me was it when I first started reviewing cars. It's still a hot car. Buzzaglow04, what? Seems like whenever I return to lease to the dealership, my excess wear and tear protection doesn't cover damages. Had scratches on my mags, front and rear bumper. Is this package worth it? Well, I think you've kind of answered your old question. If they're not going to cover it, and it's $1,800, oh, sorry, that's what they charged you, was $1,800. Here's the thing. When you lease a car and you take it back and they charge you for fixing the wheels and the bumpers and all those sorts of things, they are going to have to do that to sell the car as used. They're going to have to fix all that up. Now, if you own a car and you're going to sell it, you too are going to have to fix the wheels, get the curbs rash taken out, get the bumper scratches taken out, which is going to cost you money. So you can see why the dealers do it. Now, they're charging you at their preferred rate. So one thing you might want to do is to consider, okay, I'm not going to buy the excess wear package. If they didn't cover all those things for you, then just keep that money or don't spend the money and just get all of that stuff repaired by yourself before the car goes back. So when the car goes back, the wheels are in great shape, there are no scratches on the bumper, and you can use the same companies that the car dealers use. There are mobile tire wheel repair places that will come and do it at your house. There are guys that will come and touch up the paint on your bumpers in front of your house. So use their own services, get it at a lower price, and take the car back. That's one thing to consider. Justin says, Zach, I'm actually thinking of buying a 2015 Audi A3 TDI, certified pre-owned, less than 9,000 kilometers at Capilano Audi. What do you think of this car? Okay, so a 2015 Audi A3 TDI is a great car, but it's really just a Golf wagon. It's really a Golf hatchback. The Audi A3 and the Golf are based on the same platform. They have been for 10 plus years. It's got similar engines and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm not sure what kind of deal you're going to get on it, what kind of discount they're going to give you on it, but absolutely, if you like to be seen driving an Audi, and why not? I believe the other thing about the A3 TDI is it's not Quattro, it's only front wheel drive from what I remember. So yeah, absolutely zero issues with it. Now here's the thing, if you're getting a 2015 and it's a TDI, it now is going to come with the extended warranty for the emissions. So I just found this out, well, I actually knew it, but for my TDI, up to 10-year to cover the fuel system, the exhaust system, the turbochargers, and even the block of the engine. Anything related to the diesel system is covered with an extended warranty. So that is something that is certainly attractive. Plus you've got the CPO, that gets you 6 years of warranty, so seems to be no downside. It just comes down to what they're going to sell it to you for. DBAX97, hey Zach, great job on the channel. Any chance you'll be getting your hands on a Subaru Ascent? The launch for the Subaru Ascent is, I believe, it's this summer. And I think it's, I'm trying to remember. I know that the Forester and the Ascent are going to both be this summer. One is in June and the other one is August. I'm not sure which one is which, but yes, I will be going to the launch of the Subaru Ascent, and I'll be going to the launch of the new Forester. And if you missed it at the New York show, they unveiled the new updated Forester, and I believe the Forester is first in June, but stay tuned for that. So I don't get it in advance. I'll have to wait for the launch. Killington Link, I have an 07 cab and have a 67 912 without engine and tranny. Where and how do I get honest appraisals? Okay, a couple of things. A 1987 cab, what you need to do is you need to go and look at what the actual sale prices are on places like Renlist.com. Hopefully you're a member of Renlist, which is the Porsche Enthusiast Forum, and I've been a member for years. So you can try and find out not only what the prices are in the US, but in Canada. Look at Auto Trader, and you can also get in touch with Haggerty. Haggerty is the classic car insurance company, and a good friend of mine is Nigel Matthews. He works with them. He doesn't do sort of the hands-on stuff anymore, but you can call Haggerty and find out. For your 1967 912 with the without the engine and tranny, that's a really tricky one. But what I would do is I would go to Renlist and then go on the forums for those particular cars, and then sort of see from the people that are there. And there's a lot of people with great expertise on that forum. And the nice thing about the Renlist forum, I've been members of other forums, it's very polite. Some forums, they're just full of douchebags. But the Renlist forum, it's a different level of ownership, and these people can be very, very helpful. So for the 87 cab is going to be much easier to get a price on based on the condition and the kilometers, and then the 67 is going to be really tricky, but there's going to be somebody that wants that because of the values of vintage Porsches. Okay, oh, he says the 912 is a Targa in very poor shape. Yeah, but it's still worth something because these cars have become so valuable now. For some people, it's worth taking a shell of a car and redoing it. It's still worth it in the long run. Now, a 912, unfortunately, is not worth as much as a 911, but you never know. This next person says, not a huge fan of buying a model at the end of its life cycle. Always buy new. The thing about working out the bugs is outdated. Modern cars are so good, there are little or no bugs to work out. That's not entirely true. Vehicles that are at the end of their run are usually much better. And you can see this in quality scores for vehicles that have been out for longer periods of time. Yes, they have worked the bugs out. And vehicles that are brand new do have more issues. That just isn't true. I agree with you. They have become much, much better. But yeah, there are still, those trends are still there. But yeah, the one thing I always say to people, okay, for example, we talked about the RAV4 a couple of times already. So the new RAV4 is coming out at the end of the year, and the existing RAV4 is for sale now. So this one is, the one that's existing is a known entity, okay? And as you buy, there's going to be discounts. Another example is the Ram. Have you seen the discounts on the Ram 1500? They're offering 20% off because the new one's coming and the old ones are still there. So you have to decide to yourself, do I want the newest and the latest or proven technology at a discount? So are you motivated by price or having the latest? That really is a personal decision. I agree with you, the trend is improving, but it's not entirely, that old trend isn't without merit. What are your thoughts on four-cylinder turbos in terms of reliability? I personally think they are more reliable than ever. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that there has been a massive improvement with the technology in these, and almost every car manufacturer, I'm trying to think of a car manufacturer that doesn't have turbo four-cylinder engines. So I would agree with you on that. But same thing, engines and cars that have been out a little bit longer, hopefully they've been worked out better. Can you do a review of the SRT 392 Challenger, stuck between that and the Camaro? My issue is getting these vehicles, my hands on them. The car manufacturers often will not put in a car for us to test drive as journalists because they just don't do the volume on them. So we're at a bit of a loss talking and reviewing them because they're just not available to drive. I can put a request in. I'm not sure if I'm going to get my hands on one. And I might be able to get my hands on one, but not on the other. But the thing about the SRT Challenger is it's been out for a few years, so there should be, you know, reviews of cars when that one first came out. Hotter Hair says, bought a used 2015 Buick LaCrosse for $21,500, down from $48,000 new. It's an amazing car. What do you think of these are not selling well in the States? It's honestly the best car I've ever owned. I have said this over and over and over again. If you look at quality and dependability studies, Buick, a lot of people don't know this, is right near the top year after year after year, which proves that General Motors can and is producing good quality cars. And this is a great buy for some people, and you are proof of this, that a vehicle that is not that popular doesn't have the best resale value, but has high quality. And I've said, if you don't care about anything other than just good transportation, you want a smooth and quiet and comfortable car, and General Motors, in my opinion, does some of the best and simplest and easy to use head units in the game, and they come with 4G LTE, they come with OnStar, they come with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Maybe not a 2015, but a slightly newer one would have all of that. And you get them for much less in the used market, but they have high quality. It's a good buy. So good on you. And yes, it is a nice car. First of all, a couple of trends working against it. People are moving to utility vehicles, and one of the classes of cars that's going down the most is the full-size cars. So it's not just LaCrosse, it's Taurus, it's Maxima, cars like that. Full-size cars are not being bought in any numbers at all. Jay Bartholet, Jay from Nova Scotia, replacing a BMW 328X, a 328XIT manual, cool car. Wife already has a Volkswagen Golf Mark 7. That's a wagon, awesome. I'm considering a 2018 VW GTI or 2012 Golf R. New base VW GTI or old Mark 6 Golf R, manual or DGI. I would get, honestly, I would get the GTI manual Autobahn new. There you go. There's my answer. I think it's a better car than the Mark 6 Golf R, and I think that I think it's just for the price, it's a better car. Inline 4 turbos are more reliable than horror stories floating around. would suggest. That starts to fall apart when you get to 100,000 miles. Yeah, but you know what? The tolerances of the engines and what's being made now is so much better. But yeah, we'll have to see as these engines start to age out, are there going to be more and more issues? Someone else says, but does anybody keep a car that long anymore? Here's the interesting thing. A lot of people think that, you know, people only keep cars for 3-4 years. The average age of a car in Canada is like 10 years old, the average. Now there are cars that are vintage and that keeps the price, that keeps the age higher and what have you. But yeah, if you actually drive around and look at the cars, you'd be surprised how many old cars there are on the road. So yeah, people do keep their cars for a long period of time. Alfred, have you had a chance to look at the new Acura RDX 2019? I saw it at the Detroit Auto Show. It was at the Vancouver show. Yes, I have seen it. So I think it's going to be, it's very stylish. They're really now, with this new model, trying to differentiate it between the Honda CR-V that is based on and the RDX, because the current model is basically a CR-V with a V6 and a 6-speed automatic and a slightly nicer interior. They're going much more performance oriented. They're claiming that there's going to be hardly any shared components with the Honda products, much more performance oriented suspension. It's going to have the 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder engine, which is probably the Accord engine, but yeah, it's going to be fun to see, and the interior is much more avant-garde looking, so I have to wait for that one to come out, but yes, I have seen it. Russ Freed says, Carfax in Canada, car history, is called Car Proof. It's not Carfax. Tom Chan says, love the Tesla fanboy jokes, haha. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention before we run out of time here is that I am still doing the Zach's picks. So if you go to my website, motormouth.ca, you'll see the Zach's picks there in the upper right. And these are some cars that I've picked for your consideration if you're interested. There's 3 on there now, and I'm going to be adding more as we go through the weeks. But have a look at those cars. Go to motormouth.ca and click on Zach's picks, and you'll get to see the different cars. I'm going to be adding more of those as we go through. Somebody says if you have a mint stock Toyota Supra, you can make a lot of money. Yeah, well, that goes back to my point. You have to keep these cars for a long period of time in order for them to appreciate, and they have to be low mileage and in perfect condition. So I'm just trying to jump ahead here because I'm going to wrap it up in about 5 minutes or so. People are chiming in on the GTI versus the Golf R I just was talking about. What do you think about the Honda Insight? I have to find out more about the Insight. I'm getting the Clarity, the plug-in hybrid, not this week, but next week. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to drive that. I think the Honda Insight looks good. I think it's a really nice looking vehicle, but I have to find out more about it, to be honest with you. Darcy Smith says, looking at the Jeep line, which would you go for? A V6 3.2 or the 4-cylinder? Going from a Dodge Ram Hemi to a Jeep as a commuter car, I feel that the 4-cylinder would be too much of an engine shock. It might be. So I think you're thinking of the Cherokee, because the Cherokee is the one that has the 3.2 liter. The nice thing about what Jeep does with that engine is they charge it not much of a premium to go from the 2.3 liter Tiger Shark, or 2.4 liter Tiger Shark engine in the Cherokee to the 3.2. So I'm kind of agreeing with you on that one. Plus the Pentastar V6 has been a very reliable engine. So yeah, it might not be a bad way to go, especially if you do highway driving and if you're doing any kind of towing. Jake Reese says, GTI or Alltrack. You can get all-wheel drive in the Alltrack. That's one nice thing about the Alltrack. The Alltrack is all-wheel drive, but you can get all-wheel drive even in the Sport Wagon line, which is something to consider. So if you're considering you want all-wheel drive, but you don't want to go to a Golf R, you can get a wagon with all-wheel drive. So that's something to consider. They're both great. You know, just have to decide whether you need a wagon or not. Mahan says, why French cars are not available? I've answered this every week, because people don't want French cars, and there's no dealer network for French cars. You know, just look at some brands that have struggled to get a dealer network. So no, I don't think we're going to get French cars. Skipping ahead here. Mike says, what do you think about the Cruise TL 2015, the 1.5 liter for a first car commuter for about 22 kilometers each day in Montreal? The one thing I will say about the Chevy Cruze that I always liked, it's comfortable, it's quiet, and it is a great commuter car. Now, there were a few issues with some recalls, but they will have all been done for a car. And yeah, I have zero issues. So if you want comfortable, smooth, and quiet, the Chevy Cruze will do the trick. And yeah, give it a shot. There are lots of compact cars out there around the same price. But yeah, I have no issues. I always was a fan of the previous version of the Cruze. I always thought it was a great car. And it sold very, very well. People are chiming in on this whole French car thing. I'm not going to get into it because no, I don't think we're going to get any French cars. Even though the Nissan-Renault alliance has the access to French cars, I don't think there's a big appetite for French cars in North America. Somebody else writes, I have a 2018 Golf 4Motion 6-speed manual on order. Should be here in May, June. Would you come to Winnipeg to review it? Hey, that sounds like fun. Winnipeg in the summer. We could go up to the lake. We could go and sip some fine whiskey there in Gimli. That'd be fun. Not driving, of course. Somebody else just writes, do you drink prune juice? No, I don't. Will you be driving the new Acura RDX? Yes, I will be getting a chance to drive it when they do the launch for that. My earlier auto show question, is the individual brand's show floor where each marquee has multiple staff asking if you want to enter a contest? Okay, so Mario was asking earlier, he doesn't like when he goes to an auto show and people are asking him to enter a contest on the show floor for each individual brand. Now, you know why they're asking you, because they want your name, they want your phone number, and they want your email address. So what they're trying to do is lead generation. They're trying to send you emails saying, hey, Mario, we saw you on the floor. Here's a deal on this car. So basically, you just have to put your iPods in and say, no, speak it the English, and you'll be fine. Ash K. Breed, do you think the most interior space, the differences will be, some of these questions are people replying to other people. So I've got to figure out what are replies and what are actual questions. Hesitating between the Outlander V6 or RAV4. Any suggestion? I do a lot of gravel and dirt roads. The Outlander's a bit bigger. Gravel and dirt roads, I think the difference would be you have the ability on the Outlander to have the Supra all-wheel control to lock. The all-wheel drive system might be an advantage to you, but I don't think so. I think the biggest differentiator for somebody like that is that you're looking for a unibody style vehicle like a RAV4 or an Outlander, or a body on frame like a 4Runner or something like that. So that's something I would definitely consider. But between the two, I don't think there's going to be much in it other than the all-wheel drive system. Thanks to everybody. Don't forget, please follow along on Facebook and on Instagram and all that kind of stuff on Twitter. I'd love for you to follow along. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks to everybody for getting the questions in. And I will be back this Sunday to answer more. I got to go. It's dinner time. Bye now.